Hey, this is the Entertainment Advice Channel. What I want to talk about today is a topic of why sampling is killing music. So for this video, I'm not only going to discuss the reason why sampling is killing music, but I'll also give a solution to what we can do instead of using sampling in order to, of course, improve music as a whole, okay? So if you're interested in knowing these things and you're not too familiar with this topic, of sampling, let alone music for that matter, then watch this video and you will know in perfect detail, okay? So now that I've mentioned that, let's get started. So when it comes to the topic of why sampling is killing music, it simply comes down to the fact that sampling is killing the ability for people to have variety, okay? That is the honest truth about sampling. Sampling, without a shadow of a doubt, kills the variety when it comes to the amount of sounds that could be used for music, okay? Whether you listen to pop music, EDM, rap music, any electronic genre, okay? For that matter, okay? And even to a lesser extent, even instrument-based genres like rock and other ones out there, but specifically for electronic-based genres like music that's made on a computer, to sum it up in general, like stuff like that doesn't really actually use real instruments that much, okay? The truth is, without a shadow of a doubt, sampling is very, 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 very good at fucking up music, okay? And a reason why, to go in further detail, is that it does something that obviously results in having a negative effect on music, which, to be quite exact, is repetition, okay? To be honest with you. Because the reason why I say that, to go in further detail, if you didn't understand it, is that when it comes to sampling, the biggest problem with sampling when it comes to how it negatively affects variety is that it prevents people from, kind of coming up with their own ideas, okay? Or in other words, they tend to use the same thing, and not just the same thing, they tend to use the same song numerous times. There's literally songs out there that have been sampled anywhere from hundreds to thousands of times, okay? Numerous songs, for that matter, okay, have been sampled hundreds to thousands of times, So not even just one song or a few songs, like a few dozen or something. Literally, there's hundreds of songs that have been sampled hundreds to thousands of times, okay? Which, of course, as a result means you're going to be listening to a lot of songs that have a similar sound, okay? So the truth of the matter is, when it comes to the music listening experience, obviously it's going to have a negative effect on it when it comes to variety, because variety is one of the things when it comes to a beat, that makes it actually enjoyable, okay? It's like, for example, a perfect example would be rap music, okay? Specifically trap rap music. People always complain all the time, the music sounds repetitive. I've heard a song that sounds like this over and over again, which of course is not a good thing, to put it bluntly, okay? So the truth of the matter is, to put it bluntly, without a shadow of a doubt, I definitely do not recommend sampling, okay? Because the truth of the matter is, when it comes to sampling, since these record companies are so obsessed with getting hits, it just creates a culture where people are not really willing to make their own stuff because they're like, I want to get a hit so badly. This is one of the biggest things in the music industry. Everyone is just obsessed with getting a hit. So they just kind of use the same things over and over again. It gets very repetitive and boring. So in short, sampling is not good for music, okay? Because even when you look at the arguments those people make, which is one of the biggest arguments they make, people are pro sampling, aside from insulting people who say that they hate sampling and stuff. The biggest argument they make is that, well, it prevents people from running out of ideas and stuff. That's complete cap, okay? I'm gonna be 100% up real with you. That's complete cap. That's complete bullshit, to be even more exact, okay? They always say, well, there's only 12 notes on the piano, or just in general, 12 notes in music, you're gonna run out of ideas. But that's actually an extreme falsehood. That's like saying, oh, the alphabet only has 24 letters, So you only have so many words you can create, which is bullshit. There's so many words you can create, even with 24 letters. So to answer your question, without a shadow of a doubt, that is actually completely incorrect, okay? And that, especially when you take into consideration that there's different octaves and different types of instruments, okay? So you wouldn't even really notice, certain particular, even if certain notes are being used consistently, if you make so many songs, using different, using different octaves and different instruments and stuff, you don't really notice it as much. So that argument is just straight up dumb, to be quite blunt and honest with you, especially when you take into consideration that when you actually use sounds for samples, like instruments, sounds, and all that type of stuff, you can't change the actual octave of it. Like, which, if you're not familiar with music, octave means the pitch range, like how high or how low it sounds. Okay, you can't change it when you sample. Okay, you can't do it. So the question becomes, okay, even if you make the whole 12 notes argument, why don't I just simply, for example, just use different octaves, so it doesn't all sound the same, It's just a stupid argument, okay? So no matter how you look at it, even if you make the argument, aside from, okay, it prevents, it makes it more likely music's going to be more likable, to even the biggest one to always make, it prevents people from running out of ideas, it is completely false. All that stuff is completely false, okay? It does kill music, and it makes music sound repetitive. Okay, that's all the truth, okay? So now the question, of course, comes up is, what is a possible solution to this problem? How can we make something, not only when it comes to music, not all sound the same, but also make it in a way that we know people are gonna like? It has a similar type of sound that is at least likable to people, and that's a very good question, I have to admit. And the answer to that question is, simply put it, there's two specific answers to that question, okay? Of course, because these are covering two different issues, okay? The first one, when it comes to sound variety, dealing with the issue of sound variety, which I hear a lot of people in music complain about for modern music specifically, for that matter, is that the music all sounds the same, is that first and foremost, what you want to do is you want to encourage people to use different instruments, okay? People tend to use the same instruments over and over again, but the truth is there's so many instruments you can use, even for like one type of instrument, like woodwind instruments, or more specifically, wind instruments is what I wanted to use. There's literally dozens of types of instruments, and for each of those dozens of types of instruments, there's numerous variations of it, okay? And that's just for one main type of instrument. That's not getting into other types of instruments like percussion, like drums. That's not getting into string instruments like the guitar, the cello, and the other ones that exist, okay? There's so many different instruments out there, it's actually ridiculous, okay? To be quite blunt and honest with you, okay? So to say, okay, there's only a limited amount of ideas we can use is complete bullshit, okay? There's so much variation, it's actually ridiculous, okay? It's actually amazing people don't, for that matter, even for beginners, who are new to music, let alone people who make a pretty decent name for themselves in the music industry, they don't get completely overwhelmed by the amount of choices there are for instruments, even for people who don't care to use variety, because there's so many instruments out there, it's ridiculous. It's truly out there. There's so many types, and it's not even getting into other things as well, like different types of scales and stuff, that there's so many as well, okay, for each instrument, and it's ridiculous. To sum it up, there's a bunch of ideas, but to be quite honest with you, but specifically my point here is that try new instruments out, experiment with them, and you will definitely have a greater variety of sound, okay? That's the honest truth. That's the first part of the solution. The second one is, of course, when it comes to making sure that it sounds good, there definitely are ways to make sure that it sounds good, okay? Because there is a lot of sounds out there, and some sounds, let's be honest, are more likable to people than others, okay? This is definitely a scientific fact, okay? It's just like, why do so many songs use the 1-5-6-4 chord progression? As we all know, okay? There's a lot of songs that use it because they know people tend to prefer that chord progression over other ones. So even though, of course, yes, there is an issue with figuring out what people like, you still can figure it out to a certain extent. So you can figure out the types of scales, the types of aside from skills, the types of chords people like, and even just straight up down to different rhythms types people like, okay? There's different types of rhythms out there that people like, and you can kind of notice it over time and do all those things. So, in short, yes, there is an answer when it comes to sampling, okay? When it comes to not only why sampling is a bad system, but also what we can do to replace it, okay? Besides, the point of this video is to follow up a video I already made about this in greater detail so people understand it. So anyway, this is my video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it informative. And in short, sampling is bad for music, and that is the truth. And that is all I have to say, and simply put, I'm out. So bye.